just going through the structure of a plant cell. So last lesson we looked at what was going on inside an animal cell. So if we just click onto this here, we can see the key points that we looked at last lesson. So as you remember from Form 5 and from Form 6, animal cells have a nucleus, contains the genetic information, the DNA, and it's what controls the cell. Going around the outside of the cell, there's the cell membrane, very thin layer, and it controls what goes into and out of the cell. The cell then is made up and filled with a cytoplasm, and that cytoplasm is where the cell's activities occur, where all the chemical reactions occur. The new parts that we're learning about, so moving on from Form 5 and Form 6 into the GCSE, is the mitochondria, which you will have covered when you were looking at respiration, and these are subcellular structures where respiration occurs and energy is released, and the ribosomes, which are tiny, as you can see in this diagram here, often in exam questions just shown as dots within the cell, and the ribosomes make proteins, and this is an essential aspect of all cellular function. So all cells will have those ribosomes. Now we're going to look at that and see how different the plant cell is to it. And the first key point you'll notice is the difference in structure. So a typical plant cell is shown as a rectangle. This is mainly down to the fact that it has a cell wall. Now the cell wall is a rigid structure around the outside of the cell that provides the support that the cell needs. In animal cells there's a skeleton, whether it be an exoskeleton, a hydroskeleton, or an internal skeleton like we have to provide that support. But in plants that isn't there, so the cells themselves need structure. So the cell wall supports the cell. Don't think of it as a solid brick wall because substances still need to pass into and out of the cell through the cell membrane. So it's a strong structure around the outside, but it is permeable. It does allow substances into and out of the cell. We have a cell wall, just like the animal cell. We have a cytoplasm, just like the animal cell, and a nucleus as well. There are also mitochondria and ribosomes, as there are in the animal cell. The additional parts, apart from the cell wall, which we previously discussed, are the chloroplasts and the sap vacuole. Now, the chloroplasts are found in plant cells that are exposed to light. So you'll see that there are no chloroplasts in root hair cells because the roots are under the ground and they're not exposed to light. So that shows us that the chloroplasts must have something to do with light. And hopefully the jump that you're all making in your head is that light is needed for photosynthesis. So the chloroplasts must be linked to photosynthesis. The chloroplasts are the site of photosynthesis. So you'll find in leaves there are lots and lots of chloroplasts in those cells. Moving on, within that cell as well, there is a sap vacuole. Now, the sap vacuole is filled full of sap, and this is what helps keep the cell rigid and firm. Without this, the cell and the rest of the tissue would become flaccid, soft, and floppy, and would not look and would not be able to hold its own shape. This is kind of what happens when plants aren't watered and you see them wilting. It's because the cell sap has been drawn out of the cells. When you water them, the cell sap returns to the cells and the cells become full and they will hold their own structure. So what we need to remember are that the plant cell has three extra parts. So a cell wall for structure, the chloroplasts for photosynthesis, the cell sap vacuole, which stores cell sap, which keeps the cell firm and rigid. Now the activity you're going to be doing following on from this, as well as watching the other videos and having a look at the BBC Bite Size, will be some progress questions that are set as a Google Doc. Thank you very much, and I'll see you on Thursday for our feedback session.